Reflections with Marilyn Baker. Brought to you by Torch Trust, the Christian organisation with a vision for people with sight loss.
Hello and welcome to Reflections, the show which focuses on faith and disability in today's world. I'm Marilyn Baker, and once again, it's lovely to have your company. This week on Reflections, we're going to hear about a revolutionary new device to help people that are living with Parkinson's live far better lives. The man behind it is Beech, who you might recognise as a name if you've been a Christian for a while. He's the man behind Christian Vision for Men, CVM. He's going to share his journey of being diagnosed with the disease and how he's trying to find a new normal thanks to what he's invented. He's in conversation with Torch Trust's Chris Byland.
Beech is one of the UK's most innovative Christians. He's written books, he's been a financial advisor, a church planter, youth worker, senior pastor of a large multi-congregational church. He's the man behind the festival The Gathering, has served on several important church-run backgrounds. But you might also know him for his work with Christian Vision for Men, CVM, the Christian men's ministry, which brings men closer to God. All in all, he's so driven and a fairly unstoppable source. In 2003, Carl was diagnosed at the age of 51 with young onset Parkinson's. And while you might think that this would slow him down, he's actually on a mission to bring about change for those living with the condition through the Beech Band. I'm going to find out more about it now. Carl, thanks for joining us on Reflections. Before we get going and talking about the Beech Band and what it is, it's incredible, by the way. Talk us through the diagnosis of the young onset Parkinson's. How did you discover that you had it?
Well, weirdly, I knew I was going to be ill before I was diagnosed. I had a very strange encounter, which I haven't got time to go into in the time we have, but it resulted in someone telling me to play a song called Chainbreaker. And as I played that song in my truck, going to play for a mate who was terminally ill, it was like the presence of God flooded my truck. And I heard a whisper from God say, it was very powerful though, "My grace is sufficient for you. What's coming to you will be a gift." And I immediately knew I was going to be ill at some point, and I knew I wouldn't be healed.
Wow.
But something good would come out of it.
Mm.
Which is controversial, and people attacked me for saying that, actually. They weren't very happy that I said I wouldn't be healed. I did get shouted at in the urinals once.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was a bit of a controversial statement, but you know, it's come to pass. So I then got muscle spasms. 12 years ago, actually, I started slurring slightly. My diction was going off, my voice was softening. You might not pick up that in the moment, which will become clear in a second. Also, I was dragging my leg. So people were saying, "Have you hurt your leg?" And I was thinking, I don't think I have. And then I got these body-wide muscle spasms, particularly in my legs. And eventually, I was with Simon Thomas, actually, from the Sky Sports Expert Peter guys, having a bit of lunch. He said, "I noticed your muscles are twitching. I'm going to phone you every day until you call a doctor." Because I'd ignored it for years, and I have chronic shoulder pain. And eventually, after seeing 4 GPs, being dismissed by 3 years, you probably too stressed out or something. Fourth one did some neurological tests on me and got tears in her eyes because we worked with her, knew her quite well. And she said, "You need to go private because the NHS won't see you in time." I said, "Do you think I've got MND or something, don't you?" And she wouldn't comment. But I eventually got a number by a strange set of coincidences from Lord Rook, I think it was, new Lord Rook, that who a neurologist, a half hour seeing him. He diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's. I had a DAT scan, which is when they put radiation into you and they monitor your dopamine levels. And he said, "You have young onset Parkinson's categorically." And you basically hear several words: progressive, degenerative, and incurable. And they give you some snake oil and say, "Come back when the pills stop working. We'll give you more." And that's it.
Wow. That's quite the thing to go through. I guess the question which I want to ask you, and you sort of answered it already, but maybe you've got a different answer, is did it change your relationship with God or faith at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, certainly. Despite the fact I had a kind of, oh yeah, this is what I knew this was going to happen. You start to change your views on life. And I've probably become even more direct than I was before, because I can't be bothered to faff about in the time that I have, because it does affect, young onset, despite what is often said, will affect my life expectancy quite dramatically, probably, and at least my physical ability to a very large degree. It will degrade over time. Although I'm thinking that might not be the case now. Anyway, so there's that. So you don't want to waste time anymore, and you start front loading your life, and you don't get wound up by trivial things and things I see people upset about. I think, why would I get upset about that? And I try and squeeze as much juice out of life. And my relationship with God, I've never ever been angry at God. I've never thought I had some kind of diplomatic immunity because I was an evangelist. It's just life. Stuff happens in a fallen world. People get ill. I've had people shout at me for not being healed who are wearing glasses. I'm like, sort your eyesight out before you sort my Parkinson's out. Yeah, it changes your perspective. And I've learned that suffering can be a beautiful thing. God can be glorified with suffering, because every day I'm suffering to a degree now.
Yeah, I mean, just before we were talking, you said, what you're going through it's not just the onset Parkinson's, it's the 40 other things that go with it.
Yeah, it's 40 symptoms with the condition. We don't have them all at once, but we get them all at some point.
Wow. It's a huge thing, and I guess you kind of said it there, you could be angry with God. Was there ever a point you were angry?
No, I've never been. I mean, it's God and me. So, like, I know some Christians say, it's healthy to be angry at God and vent, but I'm not really an angry person. It's a bit of a waste of time. I get frustrated, but I'm not angry. I get frustrated at injustice, but I'm not angry.
Yeah.
I try and trap anger as quick as possible. I mean, I've had my angry moments, particularly recently, but I don't let it brood on me. I've never been cross at God. I just see it was pointless.
That's a really, really healthy way to look at it.
Yeah. And what's the point? And if I'm angry, like, stress exacerbates the symptoms of Parkinson's. So you've got to do things that alleviate stress. I cut out drama llamas from my life. Healthy stress, fine. Like, we need some challenges in life, but toxic stress can do one, really. I just get ill.
Absolutely. I don't
I get really ill.
I don't blame you. What a great outlook you've got. And that outlook, I suppose, is what's driven you really to do the Beech Band. So let's talk about it. What is it and how does it work?
Well, I did tell the origin story, and I came back from a trip to Congo. So this thing called the Freedom and Justice Partnership with Mark Preston. We're trying to, free these 40,000 kids cobalt mining in slave conditions. I did quite a hairy trip with Mark to the artisanal mines with some of the first Westerners to get in there. And then I went straight on a speaking tour of Australia. And the stress of it impacted my voice. My slight slur went to complete stammer and vocal freeze. For about 2 weeks, I couldn't speak properly at all. And I phoned my neurologist, and he said it was incurable. He said about 6% of people get this. You're unfortunately one of them. I think the brain tries to protect you. I'm a public speaker, so it shuts down the functions that are draining you most. I didn't perceive it was, but it's clear what's happened. It's not reversible. And I couldn't speak. But being told something's incurable, impossible, kind of fires me. I'm like, yeah, well, let's have a go. So I set my mind to trying to work this out. And I had all these other symptoms too. I dragging my leg and dystonia, like that's cramp on steroids, and back pain, and slight tremors started, which now can be quite vigorous. And I thought, how can I nail this? And I was getting anxiety. I've never been anxious or fearful in my life. And suddenly I was fearful about walking into Starbucks. I could preach at a conference and then not walk into the coffee shop. It's weird. So I started to research all these things, and to cut a long story short, I realized that what they've been teaching us about these things was incorrect, in my view. That we're taught cueing, which is if you're dragging your leg, it's because your autopilot's bust. So you aim for a line in the pavement, or you tap a stick out in front of you and you shoot your leg for that. And in speech, you point a grid on a bit of paper. So you sound like C3PO and you look like him. You're robotic. But I figured the signal was from my brain, not for me, not a direct signal for me. It wasn't me that needed to tap something out. My brain needed to hear something. And then I had a wild thought. Where's the safest place I've ever been? I thought it'd be my mother's room. Well, if I could recreate a heartbeat to trick my brain I'm calm all the time. And what if I could recreate this signal And then I had a thought, if it's for my brain, I've got to ignore it. I can't say I knew this. I was eating a double-decker watching Apocalypse Now and all these thoughts collided. And my wife was away, so I just sat in my chair and I tapped a beat on my chest, like 70 beats a minute-ish.
Hmm.
A mother's heartbeat, pregnant, a bit higher, elevated than the rest of your heart rate. And I could speak. My vocal freeze dropped. And I looked in the mirror, my face mask had gone. And then I started walking around my living room and I wasn't dragging my leg. And I noticed my hands felt loose and I wasn't getting foot drop. And then I thought, after I cried a bit, then I thought, I think I've just cured stammering for 80 million people. I can't believe it.
Hmm.
So I phoned my mate, Nick, who is down on the patent office's co-inventor. I said, I've got an idea for a device. And it's called Beech Band, because the first one we built, I had an idea for a rubber band with a haptic in it. Take the haptic out, put a mobile phone motor in it, clip into a battery and make it vibrate. It turned out it needed a big battery pack, so we ditched that idea, but it worked. I still got the original one, actually, locked in another location, but it worked. Then I thought we could give this away to millions. And then we formed a company to sell it as cheap as possible, give 25% to charity. And along the way, we discovered, well, I had this idea, if this attacks Parkinson's, it might attack other autoimmune conditions. So far, we've seen stroke victims swallow, speak again. MS people can walk again without sticks. We've seen Tourette's cured. We've seen many tics resolved, benign essential tremor, many Parkinson's symptoms resolved. People get out of wheelchairs. I mean, it's honestly bonkers. Dyslexia even. The words stop moving about on the page for people with dyslexia. I've seen it time after time. They burst into tears. They can read again.
So it's really just calming people down and helping them in all sorts of ways.
It distracts the brain. It sends a new signal to the basal ganglia that the brain, if you ignore it, the science now says, we've worked out, the science says that the brain will create neuroplasticity and reroute around damage if it's a subconscious signal. More than that, the beat that I set it at, the megahertz, as I say, it matches the region of the brain that vibrates in the basal ganglia, exactly the same frequency. And I set it by intuition. Turns out it's exactly the same.
Wow. That's really clever. Now, we've been talking now for 10 minutes? And anybody that's just joining us to listen to this, they'll say, oh, you don't have Parkinson's, but you're wearing the band, aren't you?
Yeah,
What happens if you turn it off?
I tell you, so can I just say there's a wire coming out of this because I had the cable didn't work. And this is actually doesn't beat at the correct resonance. I was playing around with something to try and resolve tremor. Because it does solve Parkinson's tremor, but not everyone's. So we need to adjust the frequency for some tremors. It resolves all benign essential tremor. If I turn it off.
And if I was to ask you how your day is, for example?
It's incredibly hard to speak.
Wow.
It will take all my concentration now. So then you will see that my face is going solid.
Yeah, I can see. For anybody that's listening to this, Carl's really just changed from being one person who, if you didn't know he was wearing the band, to someone completely different, to someone that you would typically see with Parkinson's.
So I'm having to speak with a higher tone to speak to you. I worked out that if I activate other muscles, then I can keep speaking. And also, you see, I'm dyskinetic now because of the stress of sending that off. It's very impacting. Also, my meds have worn off, which I did on purpose.
Yeah.
But if I speak in my normal voice, which is this voice, then I really struggle.
Yeah, I can see that. And you're moving around a lot more. You're really struggling. I can see that. Do you want to turn it back on?
I just turn it back off.
Wow. You see, that's incredible.
Not got
What?
Parkinson.
No, but it's incredible because from you've
may as well
gone
cry.
from the person I've seen just kind of visibly moving around. Your face has changed. Obviously we could hear your voice has changed, and you've literally flicked it back on, and you've become.
Instant.
I don't want to use the word normal, but you've become.
I'm the old me. I'm like I was 12 years ago now.
Yeah, it's incredible, Carl. What kind of backing have you got for this? Is it being approved by medical bodies?
Well, so we've decided to go. Well, it's been backed by Parkinson's UK, so to say that first, and then other bodies will come on board. We've attracted quite a significant amount of money by investors. I think we're going to hit 800,000 soon. We don't need 1 million, so we're going to stop it there. That's from private backers here, giving shares in the company, and it will be globally launched by the end of this year. It'll be UK wide. We'll be manufacturing 10,000 a month, and then we hope to eventually get up to 100,000 units a month. We're marketing it as a wellness device at first because what we're saying is it was designed as a kind of calming, comforting, parasympathetic initiating device. And then I discovered as a patient it had all these other things it could do, and I was trying to resolve stammer as like a subconscious cue. But then we discovered it was attacking these autonomic conditions and, not reversing them, but controlling the symptoms. But that's what patients are saying. So we're not making those claims. We're saying, well, that's what people are telling us. And then along the way, we'll get FDA nice approval. But the problem is if you do that from the outset, you end up selling a device with £25 of components in it for £1,000 and ripping off the consumer. And many medical device companies can go down that path. We don't want to do that. We're going to sell this for under 60 quid and it will change your life. And we're going to give 25% of profits to charity, and we're going to run the business of where I've lived my life. So we're not in it to get rich. We're in it to get people out of the hole. Like if we get this out there and available, then people's lives will change. And I suspect it will be fast tracked. I mean, many doctors have advised us, just keep going this route for now. And then we'll work out as we go along because we need to do the clinical research too. I've watched people who've had Parkinson's for 40 years get out of a chair and walk around like normal and smile again. I've seen people with MS who need a wheelchair walk again. Stroke victims. I saw a stroke victim who'd been in a wheelchair for 10 years get out of a chair and walk around.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. It's a modern day miracle. There's no doubt about it at all.
That's really a gift from God.
It is. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. And it makes sense of everything. I mean, it's so powerful, this device, Chris, that when I turn it off, I often cry and turn it back on, I cry because I transform. I thought I was on a downward track, but actually I've made some gains back since wearing this.
That's impressive. That's so impressive. I mean, I think the question that most people listening to this will be asking is how can they get one? Or what's the best place to visit?
Well, if you go to beechband.com and you sign up for the emails, you'll be alerted. Every week we send something out and we'll be alerted when orders are up for scale ordering, like constant supply is happening. But also we are kind of a community because we didn't want to just produce a device and leave people alone. So I run regular webinars and we have lots of support and customer care stuff. And we're trying to coach people into how to use it because some of it needs a bit of technique. Like autonomic disease teaches you can't do things and you believe that lie. And so you have to unlearn like years of autonomic disease lifestyle and trust it. When we start to do that, it works. And when people learn to ignore it, the magic happens. You can't ignore you wearing something, but you see, I'm not tuning into that beat at all. I just let it sit there. I can replicate it by turning this off.
And you're just kind of tapping.
Yeah, so I can replicate it by tapping that beat, but it's very hard for people to do. I can do it because I've been practicing it for months, but I can't sustain it forever.
And all you're doing is just tapping your shoulder there.
And it's a particular beat. Yeah. It's as simple as that. But I'll show you something else. I'll just start with tapping. Watch this. You're going to see my legs in all its glory. Watch this. If I try and balance on I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to try and balance on my right leg.
Okay.
My balance.
So just to explain what's going on, Carl has stood up. Goodness. So you've just turned it on there and now you can balance again.
Yeah. If you use it on the opposite side, to the leg that you're balancing on, you can balance again as well. So it resolves falls and freeze in Parkinson's and other autonomic conditions where your balance is compromised.
Wow.
But if I start tuning into this, I'll show you manually. So I'm tapping at 60 beats a minute, but watch what happens when I speed it up.
It doesn't quite work.
Or if I go too slow.
It doesn't do that. It doesn't have the same effect. So it's got to be a specific rate to really do its job.
And then, somehow that freaks you as long as I don't focus on it. And I was worried it wouldn't work again, so I unplugged it. So I was thinking about it. No, it's back on. Yeah. So I've been in meetings before where suddenly my speech is ground to a halt, and I'm speaking. I've gone, it's run out of battery, and I've forgotten how to it on. I just can't speak.
Oh,
Yeah.
Carl, it's an amazing device. Thank you so much for sharing it with us here on Reflections. Before we let you go, is there anything we can be praying for you, your family, or perhaps even Beech Band?
Yeah, I'd love you to pray for Beech Band. I mean, 4 out of 5 people are finding it's a benefit. I suspect that the others, some have been misdiagnosed. It's not a neurological problem. And I think some just, they don't have the patience to bear with. So just pray for his success and transform lives. There is a success so he can support charities, and pray for my family because it's a very brutal journey of Parkinson's. It's a very troubling condition. It makes you want to isolate yourself. It throws out all kinds of depression issues. And for the most part at the moment, I can fight through. But I have my tough times. And that's hard on everyone, your mates, your family. It's a daily, but hour-to-hour battle every single day. And I'm going to have to deal with it for a very long time as I decline. Unless by some miracle with part of the story of a cure or God heals me one day. So
Well, we're
if
going
he
to pray.
doesn't, he doesn't. That's good. That's all right.
Well, we're going to pray for all those things, Carl. Thank you so much for sharing Beech Band with us and for joining us on Reflections and spending some time.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure, Chris. Cheers, mate.
Once again, our thanks to Carl Beech for spending some time with us this week on Reflections and sharing the journey he's been on, living with early onset Parkinson's and the device he's developed to help cope with the condition. So please pray for Carl, his family, and for the whole team behind the Beech Band, that it reaches those who need it. That's it from us here at Reflections this week. Don't forget, if you want to find out more about the Torch Trust and the work it's doing to support people with sight loss across the UK, you can call the team. Here's the number: 01858 438 260. And they'll be only too happy to help in any way they can, whether that's helping to find Bible resources, audio, Braille, or just more information about sight loss friendly churches. Just give them a call. That number once more is 01858 438 260, or you can email info@torchtrust.org. So till next week, from me, Marilyn Baker, and all of us here at Torch Trust, God bless.
Reflections from Torch Trust.